When Gavin "Capable" Preston, a notorious Gangland figure in Melbourne, was released from prison April 2023 after completing an 11-year stretch for the fatal shooting of a drug trafficker, the criminal underworld and Victorian police were on high alert. Preston, previously linked to the shooting of former Bandidos biker Toby Mitchell and complicit in an alleged plot to assassinate Melbourne criminal boss Mick Gatto, would be released on licence. Most recently, he served time for gunning down ice dealer Adam Curry at a North Melbourne apartment on February 10, 2012. But just 6 months later, and in broad daylight, Preston was executed in cold blood. The Gangland enforcer was callously hit with 10 bullets whilst dining outside a bustling cafe, Sweet Lulu's at the Keilor Village in Melbourne's northwest on Saturday, September 9th. One of Melbourne's most unpredictable and dangerous criminals lay dead, killed in a hail of gunfire in front of terrified bystanders. As Victorian police raced to find the suspects and determine motives for the assassination, detectives knew time was precious to avoid an escalation in gang warfare. Thanks for watching Pacific Crime TV. Please remember to subscribe, like and enable notifications so you never miss a new release providing you insight on the underworld hits and organised crime groups shaking our cities. Chapter 1. Mr. Capable. Born on the Sunshine Coast, Preston grew up in Melbourne's western suburbs, and despite a stable family home, Preston spent his teenage years locked up in juvenile detention for various acts of violence. By the age of 18, Preston possessed a substantial criminal record with offences including armed robbery, assault and possession of weapons. In the 1990s, and now a young man, Preston's stints behind bars would only increase. After an initial conviction for serious assault on shopkeeper Philip Stiles in Northcote in November 1991, Preston was back in custody after savagely beating up footy fan Greg Wilson using a stick for looking at him the wrong way. Inside, Preston also got involved in a series of jailhouse dust-ups inflicting serious harm on fellow inmates, often leading to extended stays in solitary. During his occasional return to the wings of the high-security Pentridge prison, his allies included Matthew, the Generals Johnson, the killer of Carl Williams, the feared Melbourne drug lord. Even when released on licence in the mid-90s, Capable just couldn't go straight. Next up, the accomplice in an armed bank robbery in St Albans. Preston terrorised customers and clerks when he held up a branch with a .22 pistol and made away with $24,000 in a stolen car. Preston would bemoan he was a product of the system, his thuggery a consequence of his continued lockup. He would commit further attacks inside, including when he and Matthew Johnson, armed with knives and a pickaxe, subjected a prison guard to a harrowing ordeal. The duo tried to break through fortified glass to viciously attack a rival inmate. The prisoner's life only spared as a result of the guard securing the target within a cell as armed response arrived. On release from prison in 2007, Preston made a concerted effort to turn his life around. But old habits die hard. After losing his brother Richard to a heroin overdose in 2011, the standover man inked with Comanchero insignia returned to his violent past ways. On that fateful February night in 2012, Adam Curry would pay the ultimate price. Chapter 2. The Curry Killing. Adam Curry was one of Victoria's most prolific ice dealers and a close associate to amphetamine linchpin John Higgs. In the months preceding the deadly attack on Curry, Preston was under police surveillance, alleged to have shot biker boss Toby Mitchell outside a Bandidos clubhouse car park on November 28, 2011. Mitchell, ringleader of the gang's Australian wing, survived the botched hit, despite being shot in the stomach, back and hip. The former champion kickboxer would lose a kidney in the shooting, yet refused to cooperate with police. 3 days later, Preston and notorious underworld figure Nabal Mad Lebo Magni were arrested after they led police on a chase through Melbourne CBD, driving the wrong way up the Collins Street tram line. police recovered an unregistered firearm, bloodied clothing, and suspiciously a floor plan for the gym opposite the Bandidos HQ. Yet, no DNA traces to the shooting of Mitchell were established. Police did, however, believe they had opportunistically foiled an imminent hit on Mick Gatto, Carlton Crew Doyen, and chief of arguably Australia's most feared organised crime cartel. Preston had previously faced investigation for trying to extort money from a Gatto-linked construction company. Despite police objections to Preston's bail applications, he was released on December 22, 2011. Upon release, Operation Encryption was initiated by Victorian Police, which involved covert surveillance of Preston and wiretapping of his mobile phone. On the night of Curry's death, Victorian Police ceased monitoring Preston a mere 30 minutes before he, the executed Curry, at a Canning Street apartment. The police surveillance team, referred to as the Dogs, left at 12:25 a.m. Preston had arrived at Curry's busy apartment in a Holden Commodore at 10:40 p.m. There were heated discussions between the mobsters outside. Inside the apartment, other individuals known to police, as well as users who stopped by to purchase drugs. But by 11:57 p.m, the two men were alone. Minutes later, Curry lay dead after being shot twice in the head. A separate surveillance camera, monitoring Curry's house due to his own involvement in methamphetamine supply, captured footage of Preston, hood up and wearing gloves, leaving the property at 12:54 a.m. Just minutes before, emergency call handlers received calls from a concerned neighbour of Curry, reporting loud screams coming from the apartment. Preston was apprehended the following day and charged with murder. He was held on remand at Barwon, Victoria State's maximum security prison. In stunning court revelations at the 9-day murder trial in May 2015, Preston pleaded guilty to defensive homicide after prosecutors accepted his version of events that Curry pulled the gun and was shot dead after a struggle. It was revealed Preston had been in regular contact with Curry over the days leading up to the shooting. He suspected Curry was going to squawk on him for a crime as he sought to recover a $2,500 drug debt. Preston proclaimed he went to Curry's flat seeking to negotiate a truce between him and notorious criminal badness Christopher Binzer, a comrade of Toby Mitchell. The paranoid assassin believed Binz was plotting to plant a bomb under his car to avenge Mitchell's shooting. Binz followed Preston closely after the attack. He attached a tracking device to Preston's car and even stalked Preston's partner. It was later revealed Binz entrusted Curry with the car bomb explosives to keep safe whilst he was out of state. On August 11, 2015, Preston would be sentenced to 11 years. Led to the dock before sentencing, he taunted a detective from the Piranha Task Force sitting courtside, saying, "I reckon you've lost this one, champ." "What did you tell everyone? You've never lost a case?" Preston smirked and told the detective he would be out of jail before the detective retired. But behind bars, Preston remained a marked man. Chapter 3. Body Shots. Preston was a founding father of prisoners of war, a notorious gang established to strike against those who cooperated with police. But the group he helped form wickedly turned on their own man during his lockup over the Curry killing in 2014. Preston was jumped and brutally stabbed 9 times in a videoed assault carried out by 5 members of the prison gang, who used knives, spikes, and blades. Preston suffered multiple lacerations to his face, neck, and a 15-centimetre laceration down his jawline in the ordeal. Only moments before the tear-up, the attackers and Preston had held brotherly exchanges, hugging and shaking hands in the prison yard. Years later, as Preston rode out his remaining sentence, his problems intensified. Preston found himself in the crosshairs of George Morogi, drug baron, murderer, and fellow inmate at Barwon. Morogi previously botched a hit on Preston's ally Madleb O'Magny, who was shot dead in Epping in January 2020. Fueled with rage at the loss of his close friend Magny, Gavin Preston purportedly threatened to not only bash, but rape Jesse Morogi, George's younger brother. Morogi, serving a 32-year sentence of his own for the savage gunning down of Kadir Oars, went by the nickname Cross. A furious George Morogi would live up to his nickname, reportedly placing a $1 million bounty on Preston's head to silence the war of words. And on a serene spring Saturday morning, as Preston sipped an orange juice out front of the Sweet Lulu's cafe, Mr. Capable would be served his final comeuppance. In Melbourne's Keilor East, Preston lay deceased, a flurry of bullets terminating a colourful life. Chapter 4. Target Man. But who was responsible? Rumours in the Underworld suggested Preston was a target of the Comanchero Club members for refusal to remove a large and visible club tattoo from his head. But would the gang really kill an estranged associate over a perceived show of disrespect? In the months leading up to Preston's public execution, the Standover Man was also involved in a slew of nefarious activities. Suspicious arson attacks had rocked a number of Melbourne tobacco stores. In underworld circles, Preston's name kept cropping up. Meanwhile, a sinister plot to steal the body of Meshlin Morogi from a crypt had Preston a marked man. The sister of George had died suddenly aged 30 after contracting COVID-19. Two assailants wearing gas masks entered a Melbourne mausoleum and tried to exhume the body. Alas, the plot failed. The trespassers did, however, get away with a stolen $100,000 ring from the corpse. If the plan was to extort and punish Preston's nemesis Morogi, the attackers had certainly poked the bear. Ultimately, multiple underworld figures may have wanted him dead. However, it was rumoured Preston's alleged theft of trucks from the Morogi family transport business that saw simmering tensions reach boiling point. Chapter 5. Gangland Hit. In the eyes of Preston's executioners, the thug became a dead man walking not due to his violent nature, but because he was running out of violent friends. Preston's brunch with comrade Abbas Magni Jr., Nabal's son, would serve to be his last supper. On Old Calder Highway, 10:20 a.m. September 9th, two gunmen opened fire at Preston as he sat at a table on the footpath. Abbas Jr. managed to escape wounded by shots to the stomach and upper body. As chaos ensued, Preston collapsed to the ground, riddled with bullets, and the attackers fled. The gangster would bleed out on the scene. However, the attackers made a series of mistakes. They escaped the scene in an Audi Q5. The gunman drove to Blair Court on the corner of King Solomon Park, and after attempting to set alight the vehicle to destroy DNA and eliminate any evidence, one assailant had set his hand on fire. The attackers then swapped to a black Volkswagen Polo, later found abandoned 3 kilometres away in Kadir's place. A quick-thinking resident extinguished the blazing Audi with a garden hose, leaving police with a treasure trove of evidence. Police also found witnesses whom reported seeing two men, clad entirely in black, setting the car alight and removing 2 backpacks from the vehicle. With evidence and witnesses, task force detectives set to work seeking to understand if Preston was double-crossed by an ally. Sabrine Magni, daughter of Madlebo Magni and sister to the mown-down Abbas, was in a relationship with Jesse Morogi, George's son. Despite the clear battle lines between the families, the unlikely couple flaunted their flashy relationship across social media. Jesse had ample scope and reason to assassinate Preston. Weeks earlier, Sabrine and Preston had met at the Crown Casino Resort in Melbourne to clear the air. But was it really plausible Jesse would order a hit on the hood whilst he dined out with his own girlfriend's brother? Police also sought to investigate whether Abbas Jr. had led a wary target into a false sense of security. He might have copped a flesh wound for his troubles, but could Magni Jr. really have set up Preston's murder? Within days of the shooting, rumours swirled. It would soon transpire, however, a Sydney connection loomed large in the execution. Chapter 6. The Interstate Connection. 46 days after the attack, On Wednesday, the 23rd of October 2023, police swooped to arrest Sydney tradie Jaden Tito in a dawn raid at his Bradbury home. Heavily armed tactical units would pick up one of the alleged gunmen as police sought to stitch together the origins of the hit. The one-time promising NRL starlet was extradited to appear at Melbourne Crown Court. On October 26th, Tito was remanded in custody with Detective Superintendent Janet Stevenson stating Tito was key to the shooting, but noting that police are still hunting several other people and the precise motive for the shooting remains unclear. In November 2023, Rabi Zahabe, a Yaguna native, was also questioned by Victorian Crime Command at Sydney's Long Bay Prison. Rahabe is awaiting sentence on unrelated drug supply and weapons charges. Zahabi has not been formally charged in relation to Preston's death, but police say he remains a person of interest. Jaden Tito is remanded in custody. Gavin Preston would be laid to rest at Altona Memorial Park in Melbourne's west. His burial ground bears a gold plaque engraved on a cross with his moniker Gavin Capable Preston. In tribute, a small wooden plaque sits beneath with the phrase, "It is what it is." The end of the road for one of Melbourne's most notorious mobsters. Thanks for watching the channel. Please remember to like, share and comment if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you never miss a new release on Pacific Crime TV.